folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show with my co-host Hawkeye, Two Feathers, David Null. Thank you for being here. We're back. We're back after another year, 200 and some odd episodes later. Here we go for 200 and what? One.
201. And of course, we welcome you. Happy New Year. And we welcome you as always with the love and the benefits from the great creator. And we hope that you had a safe holiday season. And 2026 is going to be one big holiday.
That's right. It's going to be an interesting year ahead.
Yes,
as
sir.
always. As always. You know, I mean, we made it through 2025 and 2026 is looking good. Things are happening. And we got people in chat already. Lucky Stone, welcome to the show. He says, Happy Tribal Tuesday. Or Happy Tuesday, Tribe of the Soul Milky Way. Okay, I like Tribal Tuesday. Anyway, there's Witchy Moon. Hey, Robert and Hawkeye. Thank you both for joining us tonight. I'm sure there'll be more people piling in soon. Anyway, as we go on, how was your New Year's?
Oh, mine, it was very quiet, me and Duggar, but my next door neighbors, they brought me a plate of some food. Oh, goodness gracious. 3 different kinds of deer meat, collard greens, black-eyed peas. You know, down here in the South, we have to have collard greens represents money, and black-eyed peas are for luck. And so, you know, that in the true Southern tradition, I got some of both. So I'm a happy camper.
Well,
and
good.
I even shared some of the dinner with Duggar, so he got to munch in with me too. So
nice. Well, tonight we're going to be doing James Hobbs, and it's going to be a 2-parter because I've been, as if you haven't known, he's got his own book, James Hobbs. It's James Hobbs' Wildlife in the Far West, his personal adventures of a border mountain man. So there we go. It's going to be an interesting one. We're going to go through a little bit of his life. I've been reading about him. Quite the interesting guy. He went out to be in the mountains and got captured by the Comanche. Lived like a Comanche, learned to speak the language, even had a wife and a kid. So there you go. Then he met up with Kit Carson and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about him tonight. Gonna be an interesting, and you're starting a new book tonight too. So, hey,
yep. It is the Folklore and Legends, a North American Indian by Philadelphia, J.B. Lippincott Company, 1891. So our last book was like 1904 or something like that. So this book is even older.
Wow, nice.
And tonight's story is going to be sort of a short one. I've been reading through the book, and there's one story that's it's really long, and I'm going to have to read up on it so I don't stumble over words. But we do have a story for tonight.
Nice. It's going to be a good one. Maybe we'll get to do a long story next time or something like that, and get it all set up. And
right,
since it's a 2-parter, mine might be a little shorter next time.
And tonight's story is the discovery of the upper world. So that's tonight's story. And of course, I will pull cards at some point. So
all righty.
That'll be our first card pulling for the new year also, by the way. So
nice.
Hang out if you can, or watch the rerun.
So tonight we're talking about part of American history that rarely gets told, honestly. Not just the battles and not just the famous names, but the moments when a man's Life crosses cultures, and there's no clean way back. And James Hobbs didn't just meet Native Americans, he lived with them. He became part of their world. At 16 years old, he rode west like so many frontier boys did, chasing work and survival and a future that didn't exist back home. But one wrong decision on the plains changed everything, and he was captured by the Comanche, a people feared and misunderstood and deeply disciplined in their way of life. For 4 years, Hobbs lived among them, not as a prisoner waiting to escape, but as a man who learned, and he learned their language. He learned how they rode, how they hunted, and how they fought, how they raised their families, and how they understood the land. And he married, and he had a child. He became woven right into their society. Uh, he did not separate his life from survival or survival from honor. And then he left. He was actually sold, believe it or not, traded for a bunch of goods. And not because, he didn't live there because it was easy, not because he didn't matter, but because the frontier doesn't let you live in two worlds forever. James Hobbs walked away from the Comanche wife and child and stepped back into a world that no longer fully understood him. And from that moment on, his life became something else entirely. A man hauling goods across dangerous country, a translator between cultures, and a scout whose value came not just from his rifle, but from his words. And when war broke out between the United States and Mexico, Hobbs wasn't just another soldier. He was a rare thing on the frontier, a man who could speak English, Spanish, and multiple native languages, as many as 5. A man who could listen before bullets flew, a man who understood that wars are often decided long before the shooting starts. And tonight, we're not telling a simple story of good guys and bad guys. We're telling the story of what it costs to survive the frontier, what it meant to live between cultures, and how men like James Hobbs, translator, scouts, and bridge builders shaped history in ways textbooks rarely admit. This is not a legend. This is lived history. So we're going to jump in deep tonight. What do you have to say about that? You've ever heard of this guy?
I want to say yes, but I can't remember where.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was good friends with Kit Carson, so you might have heard some. Sometimes they get intertwined because he was a trapper in the beginning. He went out there as a young boy, as a mountain man guy, trapping and hunting, and he was teamed up with guys like Kit Carson, and he would of course been younger than him, but they were doing their thing, and he got captured, and he spent 4 years living with the Comanche, and not being a mountain man. But I think it was probably a good thing because he learned so much during that time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was thinking, what would a young man, that went across, he left civilization and went, to do the best thing I can think of is, like if you live in a big city, like I grew up in Tampa, if you kind of sort of grew up on the poor side of town, you got a job and doing the best that you could. And sometimes you did something that might not have been very legal, or it might have been fully illegal, just to get by and to, have food in your belly and stuff like that. And so, and back in the day, it's hard to represent what it was like for a young man back in those days to go west. There wasn't nothing out there. And in order to survive, it's really difficult to survive by yourself. So the best thing to do, and besides that, he was captured, but the best thing to do is go along because you can get fed, you can have clothes, you can have camaraderie, you can have safety, you know. So, but anyway, so start us off. And when was this gentleman born? Get us
Uh,
going here.
well, let's see. I got this somewhere. I got it on my notes, but I can't find it. It's the early 1800s. Um, he was basically a teenager, frontier kid, and of course, he joined up the expedition that was heading to Bent's Fort. Um, that so anyway, he went to Bent's Fort, and which was a major gateway there. Bent, who ended up starting this fort as a trading post, ended up being governor there in that county, or for New Mexico. It's in New Mexico anyway. Okay, and Bent's Fort was a major area between Mexico and the U.S. traders, and the Mexican traders and the Plains tribes, mountain men. They all seemed to congregate there at some point or another. It's been a really good spot. Um, let's see, and I do have some pictures for this, so I can share some of that as soon as I find it. Um, let's see here. I got a map, which maps are always helpful in one way or another. So we're going to be talking about this. Let's see. I don't know if Bent's Fort is on here particularly, but it is. It is a. We'll just go with this. Okay. So this is the area we're going to be talking about. He's in Texas, Oklahoma. This was kind of Comanche area territory. Um, and, people were going between here and there. And this was a dangerous area because the Indians were, they were guarding their buffalo, their homes, their families. There was different groups out there. And of course, there's trade. You got the forts that are trading for these furs that are valuable, but who's hunting these furs? Mountain men, and people are moving in. They're hunting the buffalo. And the Indians didn't like that. And of course, there was a lot of attacks, and the Comanche wanted to keep their territory, and they had every right to. It was their homeland for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Thousands of years. Yep.
Well, yeah, probably thousands. So anyway, well, he was 16, and and if you could ride and shoot and work, you were a man in the frontier terms. Okay, well, what happened in all of this? He was hunting. They were hunting on they were trapping, and he went with some guys and to trap or hunt this buffalo, and they were hunting for food for the party, and somehow or another he got separated, and according to the book, it was him and another guy, and they got separated and they got a little lost. Of course, in those big open areas, it was pretty easy to get lost, and once you get lost, well, there's no way of getting back, and of course, here's a kind of a picture of what you're going to see here. I mean, you're looking at nothingness for miles, and this is kind of a more modern picture, but it still gives you that feeling of there's nothing out there. You're out there hunting a buffalo. You get around the backside of that hill, you don't know where you're at, and it got dark, and they got lost. They couldn't get back, and they were captured by some Comanche Indians coming through, and well, instead of fighting them off, they didn't quite resist so much, and they decided that, well, it's better than either just cooperate or die. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what can you do? So they went with the Indians, and of course they were going to be. They kind of treated them badly. I think this was the Indian way of doing things. They start you out as mistreating you, and then eventually somebody comes along in the tribe after they get you back to to the fort. Yeah, I mean not the fort, the oh, what you call it, the
The
their
camp.
camp. Yeah, I'm lost for words for a second. And they get you back to the camp and they treat you badly, and then somebody comes along and says, "Okay, okay, don't mistreat him anymore. I'll take custody of him." And that's kind of how it was. Is somebody, if they didn't kill you, somebody would pick you, and if nobody picked you, so they're going to kill you. I guess it was. I guess that's just the way they were. At least in the idea that I kind of got from the book, and it was him and another guy. Uh,
Somebody had to adopt you.
yes, that's the word I'm looking for. It was kind of like an adoption, and he was adopted by one of the chiefs of the tribe, and they fed him, and he had to work, and he had to learn, and so did the other kid. He was adopted by somebody else, and these were the two guys that were there. And since they were young, well, the tribe made them into warriors. The other guy wasn't. I forget what his name was, but he was not very brave. He wasn't very brave, and he stayed in camp all the time. He was afraid to leave the camp. He was afraid of the other Indians most of the time. He didn't acclimate himself to the tribe. Now, they didn't kill him, but they didn't treat him very well either. Whereas Hobbs tried to learn the language. He acted like a warrior. He went on the hunts with them. He did everything with them and proved that he was brave and strong, and that he wasn't going to just run off at the first chance that he got.
And he did his best to assimilate with them.
Yes, that's exactly it. And they went on. He went with the war parties, fighting against other tribes, Apaches especially. They went. They did. He proved himself to the tribe, and they trusted him. And eventually, he was given a woman and allowed to marry her, and actually had a child with her. And but about 4 years after he had been there, now you got to figure he's right around 20 years old at this point. And well, what was it? One of the some white man came to trade. It was a trapper or somebody. And they came with a group of guys, and they came to trade, and they found Hobbs with the Indians, and they traded for him. Now, I don't remember exactly what goods and stuff they had to give up to get him, but they traded, and he was allowed to leave. But his wife wasn't allowed to come with him, nor was his child. So, but the chief had told him, "You are a good warrior, and you are welcome back here anytime that you can come back to the tribe, and we will accept you again." And so it was kind of like an open standing, invitation to come back. And he did go back a few times, but he was leaving, and he missed his child and his wife, and they were sad. And his wife didn't even get married after that. She just waited for him to come back around. But before he left, she gave him a horse, and he took very much. It was one of the best horses they had, and she gave it to him, and he kept that horse for a very long time. And there's a story behind that, and I will tell that in a little while. Anyway, so Hobbs went back to the mountain men, being a trapper and stuff. But he didn't stay very long. He had collected some of his back pay from the stuff that he had trapped earlier, and they were really good. They thought he had died, but he didn't. And they gave him his back pay. He went to I forget where he went, but anyway, he decided to start a business of taking mule teams or strings of mules packed with goods across the plains there to New Mexico, bringing goods and trading. And this was big business back then. Basically, he was running a trucking company with mules and horses and bunches of men taking, probably thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff. And if you made some good trips, you would make a ton of money. So somebody gave him a grub stake and financed him to do this, and he did it with success and became pretty wealthy doing that. He got along with everybody because he no matter where he went, he could speak different languages. He came across the Mexicans and he could speak with them. He knew the Comanche languages, plus the Comanche knew him, and so his mule trains didn't get stopped and raided like some of the other ones. Anyway,
and that's what made his business so successful.
Yes, exactly. Until
that was his edge in the business.
Yep. And he could talk, and he could get through the lines, and he knew the routes, he knew the land. I mean, getting taught by the Indians, he gained a lot of skills he probably wouldn't have just got from trapping and fur trading.
Well, see, and one thing that like Hobbs would have learned that he's going to go through there with a pack, a mule train full of goods, and the Indians are going to come up and want to attack. So he's already brought presents for them.
Yes. Yeah.
And so he's like, come on in, guys. Here, I got some new blankets for you. And, hey, Chief, I got a brand new knife I think you'd like. And they go, oh, thank you, and then we'll see you later. And across the plains he goes. And so they get to know him. And every time he comes through there, he barters with them so that he can get through with little hassle, So
yep.
He was a smart man. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Well, this was about the time that there was the Mexican-American War was breaking out, and the fur trade had kind of gone south, and people like him and Kit Carson and some of these other guys were now becoming scouts. But that wasn't James Hobbs's first idea to become a scout. His first thought, he was trying to become a rich man by taking mule trains and packing them and taking them across the plains into New Mexico and California and wherever, right? Unfortunately, the Mexican-American War broke out, and what happened was that I guess they give him licenses or something, but they revoked his licenses, took his mules. The Mexican government did, and basically he ended up with nothing, and said, "There you go, buddy. Sorry, take your mule and go home." You know what I'm saying? And so he left. He did get paid for some of it. He was brave enough because some other people would were getting locked up. If you were an American and you were there, you may get locked up just because you're an American,
Yep.
or you're doing business, or you're asking too much of the Mexican government, and that didn't work out so good for a lot of people, if you know what I mean.
And one thing, and still it kind of holds true to this day. It's like, so you're an American. What are you doing in Mexico? You can't drink the water, So what are you doing in Mexico? So, Americans who were in Mexico were bandits, or they were there for cattle. They were there for something other than just for pleasure. Most of the time. Some of them cowboys crossed the line to go to the cantinas, but they weren't they were not summering in Cancun, you know.
Okay, so if you're asking why what is the Mexican American War? I think we should address that a little bit. Mexico fought the U.S. because Texas was still, in Mexico's eyes, stolen territory. And when the U.S. annexed Texas and then moved troops in into disputed borderland, Mexico saw it as an invasion, and the U.S. saw it as a defense. And behind all that was American push west. Go to California and New Mexico, and those were the real prizes. But Santa Anna's army went to war in a country that was broken politically and divided and fighting for national survival. Well, that was Mexico. They were hurting. They had just broke away kind of from Spain, and they were becoming their own country. And Santa Anna was just, he had well, if you heard, you know that Santa Anna had a huge army. And how did he get this army? Well, he'd pull into your village, and if you were a fighting man age, you became part of the army. That didn't mean that you were a good soldier and you knew how to fight, or they may not even have had good weapons for you. You were there. They
If
gave
you
you,
were 12 years old or 90 years old, if you could walk, you were conscripted.
yeah, yeah, and the Mexican people weren't very happy with Santa Anna either, or his armies coming through, because they would pull into a village and, well, they would soak up all the supplies. He had 5,000 men, and, well, he needed to feed them. And, well, today, well, your cattle are going to be the food on their table. You got to feed the army. Armies can't march without food. You know what I mean? What makes a good army? Um,
And so that meant chickens, eggs, goats,
yeah,
cows, anything that walked and squawked,
yeah.
they ate it.
Well, exactly. If your army has bad water, they're not going to make it. They go through the wrong passes, they're not going to make it. They have delays, they're not going to make it. If they get ambushes, they're not going to make it. You need good scouts, for that. And I don't know if Mexicans had the good scouts, and Santa Anna just was like getting the poor farmers. Hey, here's a gun, you're going to fight. And a lot of his men died foolishly, or they gave up. Now, here's a story about. So what happened was, is Hobbs, after he lost his wagon train and he didn't know what to do, he kind of left there, and there was other people who were they were in jail, and he knew that, we got to get these people out. They were well-to-do people. They had ranches and this and that, and I don't know exactly who these people were, but he knew he had to get to the American side and get help and get these guys out before they were executed, right? So he takes off and he rides really hard to Texas to talk to one of the generals there, or majors, or whoever was in charge. And he rides and he rides and he rides. I don't know how far he rode, but he rode so much. His poor horse. This is where we go back to the horse that his wife had given him, who was so faithful. Rode until his feet were bleeding. Now, Hobbs was almost to the U.S. Army, but of course he ran into the Mexican Army just a little ways away. And sneaking through there, his horse was so bad he couldn't even ride him, and the horse could barely walk. But coming down the road was another man riding another horse, and it was a Mexican. And of course, Hobbs steps out and he tells the man, "Hey, you need to sell me that horse." And of course, Hobbs, or the Mexican, says, "No, I'm not gonna give you, sell you my horse." Yeah, but Hobbs says, well, you got two choices. You can sell your horse, or you could die where you stand. And the guy was like, and Hobbs says, I'll make it right with you. I'll pay you. I'll do whatever. And then the guy says, well, I guess I got no choice. He was really mad. So Hobbs took his horse, threw his saddle on him, and then he gave him his horse in exchange. And he says, I will pay you later, and rode off into the distance. Now, I imagine this guy is sitting there thinking, I got a horse with bloody feet that can barely walk, and you take my horse and you head off into the wilderness. And what am I to do? And
he rides off on a horse with no name.
yeah, literally. I mean, I guess you do what you got to do.
The desert on a horse with no name. Never mind. I'm sorry. Keep going.
But the idea is, well, he had a ride to find the general, and along the way he sees the army, and this guy that had the horse was part of the army. He was dressed in a military uniform kind of thing, but he didn't have a gun, and he was just, I think he was a deserter. Actually, he was probably a deserter, and well, he ends up seeing the army, and he somehow maps it out on a piece of paper. Somehow he has a piece of paper and he maps out the layout of the army, where the strategic points are, where the cannons are, and where everything is laid out is. And he takes off and he goes, meets up with the general, meets up with a bunch of his friends, the mountain men guys, and gives the general, tells him where everything's at, which they were gonna, attack the Mexican army, and this won the battle because there was some pinch points, like they were going to usher whoever was going to come and attack them was going to have to go through some certain point, and they had cannons set up there, which would, decimate the Americans. But by knowing this ahead of time, they sent out scouts to take out the cannons, and the rest of the troops weren't really well armed, and they were scattered out pretty far and wide, and which was a mistake on Santa Anna's part, with his troops. And the Americans came in, and Hobbs and some of his mountain men friend and some Shawnee Indians, they took out the cannons, and which led the troops into the camp and chased back the Mexican army and defeated them that day. Believe it or not. Now, after that, Hobbs was really surprised by the general, and I can't remember Dolphin. I think his name was Dolphin. And he became a scout for him and a messenger. And so, because since he could speak all these languages, which was great, he could talk with the Mexicans along the way. So as the U.S. Army marched on to, fight more battles, they too stopped at ranches and towns, but not unlike the Mexican army, who just took what they wanted. The American people took what they needed and they paid for it. So big difference there.
But they still depleted. Nevertheless, if you're 100 miles from the nearest store and the army comes through and cleans out your animals, a lot of good it does if you got silver in your pocket.
Yeah, but
you got to replace. I mean, they did better, but still, you got to understand that when they came through, they didn't leave much behind.
Well, that's
the people who were living there, so they might have paid for it, but yeah.
Well, this is absolutely true. One of the stories that I read in there about that was Hobbs had went, I think 20 miles or something, 20 or 25 miles, and he was looking for a place for the army to stop, and he found this little ranch, And as he found the ranch, he found a nice little spot down by a river where the army could make their camp. And so he ran up to the rancher and he says, all the Mexicans were running. And he goes, no, 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 friendly, blah, blah, blah. And he said, we want 5 beef, we want 5. And we need corn. We need, 20 bushels of corn and 5 beeves. We need to feed our army coming through, and we will pay you. Well, the rancher, didn't give his name, but the rancher, he was really actually happy to see the Americans because, as a Mexican, he didn't like the Mexican army when they came through because they just took, thousands of troops and they just took everything. And the Americans there wasn't that many of the Americans, but they tried to pay and they did, so, but he welcomed the Americans in. He brought the colonel and the general in and some of the officers, and he fed them a big meal at his own table and gave them rooms in his ranch house, let the troops camp down by the creek, and the Americans did pay him for the things they took and things like that. So
good.
So anyway, this was the Mexican Army's on Santa Ana. When people say Santa Ana's army, I got some notes here. They're talking about the Mexican army between the 1830s and 40s. Okay, so we were talking about officers. Generals and partisans were often the same people. Coups were often, loyalty was political as the military. Money problems. Mexico was frequently broke. That's why they didn't pay for anything. Soldiers were unpaid and supplies were short and weapons varied widely. The Mexican army literally had lances, big stick with a, pokey on it for their weapons. I mean, that's kind of stuff was so outdated with you get what I'm saying? They're shooting with old time guns and using lances and throwing sticks and stones kind of thing.
Well, remember though, that all of them were shooting with muskets. Remember?
Yeah.
So
these was muskets, exactly.
Both sides had muskets. Yeah.
Yeah, but it depends. And it says here the quality troops. Some units were excellent, and especially cavalry and certain regular regiments. But many soldiers were poorly trained conscripts. Like I said, you're out there holding the garden, and they come by, and now you're a military service guy. You're in the army. Here's your gun. Here's your lance. Go fight. You're probably going to die.
and also, the local farmer is not one to have been shooting a lot, whereas when the folks that Davy Crockett and them folks that came in, Jim Bowie and all, them folks were dead-eyed shots.
Yeah.
They could shoot an ear off a squirrel. I mean, they were good. And so whereas these other guys, all they knew to do was to aim and shoot, not necessarily, get a beat on somebody. But anyway, so our side was much, not necessarily better prepared, but they were much better marksmen.
Yeah, marksmen. Well, I mean, think about it. Even in that military group that I'm talking about that Hobbs was in, a lot of his mountain men guys were in that group, and they've been shooting everything and anything for quite a while. To be a mountain man, you had to be a good shot. You're fighting Indians, or you're shooting buffalo and elk and deer and wolves and you name it. You gotta shoot good to stay alive.
And not only that, but you don't want to have to, if you shoot an animal, you don't want to have to run it down. You want to shoot it, hit it, knock it down. And so was talking with a friend of mine today, and he was like, man, shot a deer at dusk and didn't get a clean shot, and off it ran, and it took me 2 hours to track it down in the dark, then I had to tote it home, and it was like, okay. So, but if you want to be able to drop that animal right where it sits,
Yeah.
So that makes him a good shot, is my point.
Oh yeah. Well, like I said, let's see. How about Santa Ana's wouldn't like they taught it on the show. That's a good one. Um, but anyway, so he helped them out, and then he became a messenger and a scout for that army, the General Dolphin, and they were at this rancher's house, and they paid their way, and he treated them well. They treated him well, and he treated them well when he knew that the Mexican army would come by and just take. They're giving nothing back. You're getting nothing for everything you have, so who are you going to help? So I guess you could call these people sympathizers, more or less. Anyway, um, the Mexican army was just pretty much outmaneuvered and outgunned. Yeah, what was it? But they were ruthless. Both sides are ruthless. Put it this way. So, what was it? I forget what it was. One guy. Bent's Fort. That's what it was. Remember we were talking about Bent's Fort? Well, during this excursion of military might, you should say, Bent himself, now governor, went to one of his relatives' haciendas, and he was assassinated. Now he was well liked by everybody, and when he was assassinated, the Americans retaliated by killing 400 Mexican prisoners. I mean, this is how ruthless these people are. We hear about the Alamo and how they captured the Alamo and just killed everybody that survived there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the Americans weren't no better. Hey, you killed our governor. We're just going to kill your guy. Can you imagine? Hey, you prisoner, come on over here. We're going to kill you because some guy killed the governor. We're just going to, you're dying to just add to the numbers. Life was not as precious. I don't know. Life was not as precious back then as it is today.
Life was
brutal and cheap. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's the Indians would go out there, and Hobbs was being chased. This is another story I was reading out of the book. He's got a lot of interesting stories. So he's being chased. He's out there camp. He's running one of his messages. He's being a messenger, right? And he's got 200 miles to travel across the prairie, and some Navajo Indians show up, and there was 4 of them, and they're chasing him. And as they're chasing him across the prairie, he's seen him. He jumps on his horse, and they chase him across the prairie, and which he left everything behind, just got on his horse, and away he went. And as they're going, he's trying to shoot back at him, and he's the only thing he could do is try to outrun him. That was all he could do. Well, he knew he shot one because the guy fell off his horse, and he knew he shot another one. And by the time he got the second one, now they're shooting at him too. But as soon as they stopped and they turned around and went back, and then he kept going, and of course he lost his pack mule and all his food and everything like that. All he had was the message that he was carrying. And I thought, oh my goodness, and I thought, so you got 4 Indians, and they find one white man, and they chase him down, and 2 of them get killed. That's not a very good strategy, is it? It's like, we went out with 4 guys, and we came back with 2, and look what we got. We got a mule with a few supplies on it. Well, Since there's two less of us, there'll be more for everybody else. Not well planned out. I hear this story over and over and over. And it just tells me that life was cheap. We went out today to shoot an elk, and old Joe there fell off the cliff, or he got shot by an Indian, but we got the elk. Here it is. We're eating good tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, you can have old Joe's bedroll,
Yeah. Let's divvy up his stuff and send some money back to his kinfolk in Missouri there. Oh my gosh. Geez. I tell you, it makes you really think how lucky we are to live in the day we live in, even though there's violence and stuff like that out there. In reality, we live in safe times. We do. I mean, the one guy was in a battle. I was reading about the battle they were in, and he got shot in the thigh. And then, of course, he got septic and he eventually died. And I'm thinking, oh my, because they didn't know how to take the bullet out, properly. And they kept saying, well, they couldn't find the bullet. And then he got really sick and he's hanging on, and eventually he died. I thought, oh my God. And he couldn't even get him to a real doctor. They just kept putting him in the wagon and hauling him around. I'm thinking, that poor guy. Oh, geez.
Yeah, and one of the old adages from the old Western movies and shows was the worst. The worst you could get shot would be a gut shot. They say, because that's going to mess with your internal organs, and it's going to and that's a slow death, and a gut shot's the worst shot.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah. So imagine somebody out on the prairie gets a gut shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a matter of time before you die.
Exactly.
I mean, basically, because you couldn't get it taken care of, and they used lead balls back then, so you were going to get lead poisoning.
Didn't look good for you, that's for sure.
And he was going to get septic and all that kind of good stuff. So, hey,
fun stuff.
Welcome to the Old West.
Well, I got a story for you, a short story here. We're going to talk about James Hobbs and the wagon road between two worlds. By the time James Hobbs left the Comanche, he wasn't a boy anymore. 4 years on the plains had stripped away anything soft, and he didn't walk like a settler. He didn't talk like a trader, and he didn't think like a soldier. He felt like a man who knew every mile of open country could kill you if you didn't listen. And that's how he ended up hauling goods across dangerous ground. Not glamour work, not his heroic work, but necessary work. Wagons had to move. Food, powder, tools, and clothes. All of it had to pass through land that belonged to people who didn't ask permission from maps. And James Hobbs was valuable now because he could read the land and the people on it. The job. One late summer, Hobbs signed on to guide a small wagon train moving supplies south. American goods bound for Mexican settlements and frontier posts. A half a dozen wagons, lightly guarded, moving too slow to fight and too valuable to abandon. The men running the wagons were nervous. And there had to be reason to be. And the stretch of prairie was Comanche country. Not just hunting ground, but living ground. Trails crossed it, camps shifted through it, and war parties moved across it faster than any wagon ever could. And Hobbs warned them before they even set out. He said, if we move like settlers, we'll die like settlers. You follow me, not the road. And some listened, and some didn't. The first sign, 3 days out, Hobbs spotted it. Not a rider, not smoke, something worse. The buffalo were gone. A wide stretch of land that should have been alive, flattened grass, dung, bones, was empty. No movement, no sound, and no birds. Hobbs stopped his horse. He dismounted. He knelt. ran his fingers through the dirt. Then he stood up and said quietly, "We're being watched." One of the teamsters laughed and said he didn't see anyone. Hobbs didn't argue. He said, "You won't." Hobbs moved the wagons off the trail, a decision that angered the wagon boss. Trails meant speed. Trails meant direction. But Hobbs knew better. Comanche watched trails. They didn't watch empty ground. He took them wide, slow and low, into shallow draws and broken terrain where wagons struggled, but horses disappeared. That night, Hobbs didn't light a fire. Men complained. Hobbs didn't care. He sat on his horse through the dark, listening. And just before dawn, he heard it. No hooves, breathing. Close, controlled, and patient. As the light came up, Hobbs raised his hand. The wagon stopped. Out of the tall grass rode 3 Comanche men, calm, quiet, armed, and perfectly positioned. They didn't charge. They didn't shout. They waited. This wasn't a raid. This was a question. The wagon boss reached for his rifle. Hobbs stopped him. Hobbs dismounted and walked forward alone. No rifle raised, no hands hidden. He spoke first in Comanche. The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. He spoke who he was, where he'd been, who he'd lived with. He named a chief. He named a camp. He named a woman. The Comanche listened. One of them replied slowly, testing him. Hobbs answered without hesitation. The air changed. What Hobbs did next saved every life in the wagon train. He didn't beg. He didn't threaten. He explained. He explained who owned the goods and who they were meant for. The route would be avoided and how long they would be gone. Then he did something no ordinary scout would have dared to do. He offered a gift, not goods and not weapons, but information. He told them where another wagon train would be moving 3 days later, one better armed, one less careful. The Comanche didn't smile. They didn't need to. They turned their horses and rode away. When the wagons reached their destination days later, the men were shaken, not by battle, how close to death they had all come without a single shot. The wagon boss finally asked Hobbs, "How did you know what to say?" Hobbs didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because once I wasn't the man on the side of the road." He survived because he understood something most men never did. The frontier wasn't a line, it was a conversation. Men like Hobbs, men who spoke languages, who lived lives inside more than one culture, decided the fate of wagon trains and settlements and wars long before anyone wrote the history book about it. That's the kind of man James Hobbs was. Yeah, and one that he'd become. Not just a mountain man, but a man who lived between the worlds of the Comanche and the worlds of the white man. And there you go, people. A little bit about James Hobbs. What do you think of that?
Yeah, buddy, huh?
Yeah. Can you imagine the tension? Why are we going this? I can imagine. I'm a city dude. And why are we getting off the trail and going this way? It's a lot harder travel. I don't want to go this way. I want to go that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the Indians come up and uh-oh. I heard these stories before where the Indians show up and we all die. We all die and our scalps get gone. You know what I mean?
Oof. Yep, you wake up dead.
Yes, you wake
without any hair.
That's right. That is so right. Well, anyway, so tonight, that is the first half we're going to be talking about because there's so much more to talk about this guy. This is just the beginning years. He's like 20, 25 now. And heck, he's we got more to talk about this military stuff going with the Mexicans and what happened afterwards. his adventures with Kit Carson. Yeah, very, very much to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there you go. But anyway, we'll call it good for that. What do you got for let's see, we got a story. We got stories.
Yeah, the story for tonight is the discovery of the upper world.
Ooh.
And this is from the new book I'm reading from, Folklore and Legends, North American Indians by Philadelphia, J.B. Lippincott Company in 1891. So this is an old book for sure.
Yeah.
And some of these stories in the older books are some of the stories that, like in 1902, was written down. The story's similar, but not the same, And
Yeah.
so I like reading the ones from the older books because they were the stories that didn't get changed.
Yeah.
They're the truest form of the story. So, are we ready here?
Just about.
All right, let me get a swig of coffee here. And
the discovery of the upper world. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Regina Hutchinson, nice to see you here. Look at that. It's the best brothers and girls over. Thank you for joining us tonight. And everybody else, Elderberry, Lucky Stone, Nina the Mystic. Oh, and there is Steve Stone. Hello, Bob. Happy New Year, all. I didn't even see him there. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. It was very, very nice, y'all. Anyway, there's a movie on this week about Hobbs. Wow, I didn't know that. I'll have to look that one up. Okay, I think we got your story all set, and it's all yours.
okie dokie. So again, I'll repeat it. I'm reading this story comes from Folklore and Legends, North American Indian by Philadelphia, J.B. Lippincott Company, 1891. This story is called The Discovery of the Upper World. The Minatarees and all the other Indians who are not of the stock of the grandfather of nations were once not of this upper air, but dwelt in the bowels of the earth. The good spirit, when he made them, meant, no doubt, at a proper time to put them in enjoyment of all the good things which he had prepared for them upon the earth. But he ordered that their first stage of existence should be within it. They all dwelt underground, like moles, in one great cavern. When they emerged, it was in different places, but generally near where they now inhabit. At that time, few of the Indian tribes wore the human form. Some had the figures or semblances of beasts. The Palkunawakots were rabbits. Some of the Delawares were groundhogs, others tortoises, and the Tuscaroras and a great many others were rattlesnakes. The Sioux were the hissing snakes, but the Minnenateries were always men. Their part of the great cavern was situated far towards the mountains of snow. The great cavern in which the Indians dwelt was indeed a dark and dismal region. In the country of the Minnenateries, It was lighted up only by the rays of the sun, which strayed through the fissures of the rock and the crevices in the roof of the cavern, while in that of the Mengwi all was dark and sunless. The life of the Indians was a life of misery compared with that they now enjoy, and it was endured only because they were ignorant of a fairer or richer world, or a better or happier state of being. There were among the Minneatres 2 boys who, from the hour of their birth, showed superior wisdom, sagacity, and cunning. Even while they were children, they were wiser than their fathers. They asked their parents whence the light came, which streamed through the fissures of the rock and played along the sides of the cavern, and whence and from what descended the roots of the great vine. Their father could not tell them, and their mother only laughed at the question, which appeared to her very foolish. They asked the priest, but he could not tell them. But he said he supposed the light came from the eyes of some great wolf. The boys asked the king tortoise, who sulkily drew his head into his shell and made no answer. When they asked the chief rattlesnake, he answered that he knew and would tell them all about it if they would promise to make peace with his tribe and on no account kill one of his descendants. The boys promised, and the chief rattlesnake then told them that there was a world above them, a beautiful world, peopled by creatures in the shape of beasts, having a pure atmosphere and a soft sky, sweet fruits and mellow water, well stocked hunting grounds, and well filled lakes. He told them to ascend by the roots, which were those of a great grapevine. A while after the boys were missing, nor did they come back till the Minneatres had celebrated their death, and the lying priest had, as he falsely said, in a vision, seen them inhabitants of a land of spirits. The Indians were surprised by the return of the boys. They came back singing and dancing and were grown so much and looked so different from what they did when they left the cavern that their father and mother scarcely knew them. They were sleek and fat, and when they walked, it was with so strong a step that the hollow space rang with the sound of their feet. They were covered with the skins of animals and had blankets of the skins of raccoons and beavers. They described to the Indians the pleasures of the upper world, and the people were delighted with their story. At length, they resolved to leave their dull residence underground for the upper regions. All agreed to this except the groundhog, the badger, and the mole, who said as they had been put where they were, they would live and die there. The rabbit said he would live sometimes above and sometimes below. When the Indians had determined to leave their habitations underground, the Minneatres began, men, women, and children, to clamber up the vine, and one half of them had already reached the surface of the earth when a dire mishap involved the remainder in a still more desolate captivity within its bowels. There was among them a very fat old woman who was heavier than any 6 of her nation. Nothing would do, but she must go up before some of her neighbors. Away she clambered, but her weight was so great that the vine broke with it, and the opening to which it afforded the sole means of ascending closed upon her and the rest of her nation. The end. Now, one would assume then that the rest of them folks are still down there. So that's our story for this evening. And I hope you all have chosen your cards because I already did.
That was a good one. I want to say a few words about that.
Oh, okay.
Well, the idea is, some of those Indian tribes say that they came from the underworld, and yet,
Yes, the Hopi.
so here, yes, they did. And so now we got this group who has another story. I mean, about the underworld. Again, hey, we were living in a cave and now we climbed up a vine. Most of us made it, and some of us didn't quite make it. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of
Yep,
kind of
there was a big heifer that broke the vine,
Yep. Big heifer. I love that. Big heifer. We broke the vine. She was bigger than 6 others all at the same time. Huh. They must have been eating really well underground. That's all I could say. She was having a smorgasbord about stuff. Where did they get food to eat underground? That's what I want to know. What was she cooking and eating? Sure wasn't corn. Anyway, Elderberry's got his picks. Mountain lion, bear, fox, grouse, and buffalo. Lucky's got his picks. My choices: Dave, fox, bat, ant, and armadillo, and crow. Okay, who's the
Well,
lucky
he
guy?
got one right.
Woohoo! There you go. I'm going with elk, eagle, dragonfly, and ant. There you go. Those are my picks.
Okay, well, y'all gonna be real surprised, but this is a totally different bunch of characters.
Well, it's a new year, so there you go.
Yes, it is. And so the first one up is lizard upside down. The
Ooh, we haven't
second
had
one is
lizard.
armadillo right side up. The third one is mouse right side up. The fourth card is wolf right side up. The fifth card is turkey right side up. And the last one is beaver upside down. So, we've not heard from armadillo in a while. We haven't heard from lizard in a while.
Mouse either.
The same thing with mouse. Um,
Wolf, turkey, and what was it? Mouse, wolf, turkey, and armadillo.
and beaver.
Beaver, that's it. Sorry.
Lizard, armadillo, mouse, wolf, turkey, and beaver.
Okay.
So, lizard is about the dreaming. And so, lizard's under a rock and the snake comes under. And lizard tells the snake, I know you're not going to eat me because I dreamed that you wouldn't. And the snake says, but, your eyelids were closed. And he goes, no, I was just in the dream time. So the lizard is all about being in the dream time. So, but the contrary lizard, you may be having a nightmare. So something might be messing with your dreams. This might be a sign of inner conflict. So any of you out there being conflicted? What are the feelings your nightmare causes? Another message of lizard reversed is that you may need more sleep or you may need more dream time. So it might be not that you're having nightmares, it's that you don't have enough dreams. Imagination is the door to all new ideas and creations. As you examine the dreaming process, you will find that the subconscious is processing all of the recorded messages it holds. These messages can be suppressed feelings, bringing up inner conflict. So make sure that all of that is there. In one sense, contrary lizard is insisting that you look to your imagination for a new experience. So that sounds like a really good beginning for the year. Armadillo, which is number 28 in the card numbers. Um, there's turkey giveaway. Um, Armadillo is about boundaries. So an upside down lizard may be looking for new experiences and new to get your imagination and stuff flowing. But armadillo showing up right after, is about boundaries. So you go off, on the new year, but we need to choose our boundaries. You know, these waddled into your cards. It is time to define your space. So before you get too far into the year and folks around you, you need to make sure that you have set your boundaries. What are you going to allow or not allow? What kind of people are you going to allow to get into your space or not? So set boundaries. And the next one up is mouse, which is scrutiny. So here you got armadillo telling you to, you know, um, set your boundaries, and mouse is telling you to use scrutiny in the future. But mouse can be nitpickers, quite frankly, because the mouse will look at everything and it will seek it to the point of it's an ADHD thing kind of thing for with the mouse. Um, the chiefs tell us that without mouse there would be no systemization of knowledge. So mouse is really important with categorizing things, but it can go too crazy. So armadillo, set your boundaries. Mouse is saying scrutinize stuff that's coming your way. Wolf is the next one up, and that's number 15. Um, Wolf is the teacher, so which is interesting. So Mouse is scrutinize stuff, and Wolf is the teacher. In the Great Star Nation, Wolf is represented by the dog star Sirius, which legend tells us is the original home of our teachers in the ancient times. If you've drawn Wolf's card, you may be able to share your personal medicine with others. So you're going to scrutinize, and then Wolf showing up is saying that it's going to be time to teach folks, in this coming year. The next one is Turkey, which is giveaway. Let's see, number 31. Turkey is the giveaway. Turkey is actually thought to be the giveaway eagle or the South Eagle. The philosophy of giveaway was practiced by many tribes. Simply stated, it is the deep and abiding recognition of the sacrifices of both the self and others. And so the giveaway was that, if you had more than somebody else, then you gave it away. And so turkey was that. A turkey was the medicine of many saints and mystics. Celebrate if you have turkey medicine. Your view of virtues are many, and you may have transcended yourself. So here's turkey as the giveaway. Wolf also, Wolf is part of the pack too. So we can't forget that. But Wolf as the teacher. So Wolf goes out and learns things and brings it back. And Turkey is the medicine um, to show your virtues. And then you've got Beaver, which is upside down, number 22. So far, I see this as all being good for the cards. So Beaver is the builder. And so if Beaver is upside down, it could also enter a time of laziness or apathy. Now, I know that I went through a couple of days of this apathy thing already. Do not succumb to it. And so, with all the things to scrutinize, make sure that you scrutinize that you're not being apathetic about something. Um, and you have to also, with Beaver, you have to be able to work with others. Can you do that? Do you have a problem with that? Has my mind created so many obstacles to productivity that I feel like a failure before you begin, So it's like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. That sounds like it's going to be really hard. And so you convince yourself you're no good at it, or that the task is too hard. So met upon Beaver's determination and the willingness to work. Visualize the goal you wish to accomplish for this year and be willing to work with others to achieve that end. That's not a bad card reading. So, there's oh, and there was another card that, let's see, where was Dolphin? Dolphin is about mana. And I almost pulled the Dolphin card, and then it was like, well, but I picked a Beaver card instead. So, but Dolphin is about mana, meaning, the life force. And so, um, oh, there it is, mana. Dolphin is the keeper of the sacred breath of life. So as we go forward in this year, we need to learn how to breathe. And it teaches us how to release emotions through the dolphin breath. So, mana is life force. Mana is present in every atom and is great spirit's essence. So, we should not forget that. So, breathe in the mana that is the universe, and set your boundaries, scrutinize, teach some other folks, and come back to the pack. Turkey is the giveaway, and Beaver. Let's make sure that we can build together and for the future. And Dolphin is about the mana. Breathe in the life force. There you go. Our reading for tonight. I hope that means something to y'all. Um, that's a really
Absolutely.
positive set of cards right there, in my opinion.
That's right. Yep.
For a new year, this is a good set of cards, y'all.
Yep. Yeah.
Nothing fancy, but it's a good outline.
I like it. I like it. We haven't had some of those, so that's kind of the new year. It's bringing in different things. So yeah, yeah. Because we were getting for the longest time there, we were getting the same exact cards. I mean, with very little variation. It was always same, 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 same. So maybe this is a new outlook.
And
Gonna
you know, this is a new year, a new paradigm. Some planets are going to be lining up here in a week or so, and so it's different out there. It really is. But that's an interesting. I'm just. This is an interesting set of cards, y'all. Positive, positive, positive. I'm
I,
glad to be the messenger of those cards.
that's good. That is good. Closing all my stuff out. Be back and good to go. Anyway, yep. But boy, that went fast. Holy cow. You should have done 2 stories. Maybe you're right. Anyway, oh, but that's all right. Wind it up a little shorter this time, and it'll be a little longer next time or whatever. Um, but it's our first show of the new year. We gotta get broke back in, don't we?
Yeah, and I could have read a longer story, but it would have been real long.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And so, um, but for our first show back to, at least we're on time, and we made it through, an hour and a half. Um, and so far, it seems like, I did pull the cards, but it seems like in the world in general, it seems like things are fairly positive, Let's make this a good year. Was in the December 31st, I'm in the fireworks store in Moultrie. Okay.
Yeah.
The place is packed.
Really?
I mean, it's literally all you can do is like move up one and then wait and then move up one, going in, and it's an old house that they converted to a store.
Yeah.
And so there are people waiting outside to get in because there's such a line. They're out on the front porch, and they've only got one set of checkout. So everything is kind of, relegated to the checkout.
Yeah.
But folks are bumping into each other and they're really cramped in there. But the thing I found the most interesting, me with my big mouth, I'm talking to the lady behind me, which means I was talking to 6 people behind her. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry I bumped into you, and no problem, everything's groovy. And so, what do you think? Happy New Year, Happy New Year. What do you think about the new year? You think it's going to be a good year? And she was like, well, I feel pretty positive about it. And so all the people behind her, they were all, I'm looking at them, so what do you think? And they're all nodding up and down. So everybody in the fireworks store, where it was so cramped and it could have been tense, arguing and bumping and, not nobody in the place. And there were Mexicans, there were white people, there were black people, there were brown people, and there was no arguments, and everybody was just waiting their turn. And I thought to myself, I'm so glad I live in the South. I mean, there could have been, hey, don't bump into me. Hey, watch out where you go. Nothing like that. And there were 75 people lined up all around inside the place and back around, and all with great big boxes trying to get to the, the checkout. But so everybody in line, nobody in the place was like, no, I think this is going to be a shitty year. Nobody. Everybody was like, yeah, I feel positive about this coming year. So I was like, sweet,
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody I've talked to since then, before that and since then, they were all like, no, I feel good about it. Last year, not too sure, but this year, yeah, looking forward to it, So let's go.
That's right. Let's go. But yeah, no, I got good feelings about it too. We're really looking for the new year to be good. So far, so good. So anyway, we're still all here and everything's working. Lights are still on. So you got to keep that positive attitude. We're coming on with our show. We missed a few weeks. It was either because I had to work or I was on a trip. My mother was not feeling so good. She was in the hospital. I thought she was going to die. She made it, so I had to go to Wisconsin and go visit her and made it back on my safe travels. I drove all the way there, 800 miles in the fog and 850 miles back in the fog. And yeah, interesting.
And you made it home safe, and that's where my prayers were,
Yeah. Yeah, made it home safe. That's what counts. But it was good to be back home. It's nice to go visit, but it's always good to get home. Yeah. So anyway, with all of that, we'll be back next week, and don't forget everybody to go get your mugs with Native American myths and legends with Robert and David, best storyteller on YouTube, Hawkeye Two Feathers, and or your shirts, hoodies, all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, I got mine on too.
All right, there you go. Hot diggity dog. Gotta love the shirt. Hey, we're famous.
Infamous.
Yes, you can check us out here on YouTube, or you can get over on Spotify. We're on Spotify too. Just look up Milky Way Soul Tribe on Spotify. We're on there too, and you can listen to us while you're on the road or in your house. Turn it on your phone or wherever you want to listen to it. But we're on there too. So check us out on those places. You can catch us anywhere. Listen anytime you want. We got lots of good stuff. Trust me, we're rocking and rolling. We're gonna soup things up. Hopefully this year I'm gonna work really hard at getting guests, and my goal is to get us some guests. Hawkeye, we're gonna have a guest we'll be able to ask questions and talk to, and maybe tell us some things we don't know. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
At least that's my plan. I'm gonna work hard at it. I that's my New Year's resolution. I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah, but it greatly depends on them other folk too.
Well, like I said, you keep working at it. Eventually, you get what you want. But you got to keep at it. Isn't that the thing? The secret. What was it? The secret. How was it that? Oh, if you want that front parking spot at the grocery store, you just put it in your mind and you drive around the parking lot, and eventually a spot in the front will open up for you. Is it your mind, or is it just because somebody left?
Or is it dumb luck?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, not everybody in the front row parking spot is going to stay there all day. The odds are that somebody will pull out. And if you drive around enough, eventually you will get that front parking spot. It's just inevitable. You can't get nothing you don't work for. Is that not true? In all your years of age, I keep telling this to everybody, and I'm hoping somebody will listen and get something for nothing. You have to work for it. You can't just hope and pray that things will turn one way or another. You have to do some of the work to get to that goal. If it's, you get what is this not true?
Oh yeah. A lot of folks say, you can manifest something. Oh, I'm going to manifest a new car. Yeah, well, you got to have a job to pay for the car. But you can manifest it by being able to get a decent loan and you get a raise to be able to pay for the thing and where things can line up to help get you that car, but you still got to work for it. So whatever it is, regardless of what it is, yes, you can manifest it, but you got to work for it.
That's right. That's
right.
You
can't sit and look out the window.
Yeah, you can't just look out the window every day and hope that new car shows up in your yard, and because it won't. It's not just going to show up. The likelihood of that happening is so far off that it'll never come true for you. You have to.
Now, I'm the exception to the rule because last year my brother passed away and I ended up with his vehicle. So, I wasn't looking for one and I wasn't trying to buy one. So, but, the only way that I ended up, the fact that I ended up with a vehicle, but it was due to a death in the family. So the only way you might get something is if you inherit it, to not put anything into it is what I mean. But I'd much rather have my brother around to go fishing with than to have his Jeep. But it is what it is.
Yeah, No, I totally
Thank you,
understand.
Danny.
But that is so true. You know, very rarely are you ever going to get anything for with no work. It's usually going to be, you know, and Lucky says, stop whining and start winning. Yes,
That's
exactly.
right.
Yes.
Stop being the victim.
That's right. And there's so many people in this world right now that act like a victimhood. Oh, the government should provide for me. Oh, I didn't, well, did you go to work? Did you even try to go to work? You know, I mean, they started welfare and social security and all that stuff for people who couldn't go to work, people who were older, who were done with work, not for people who are 25, 30, 35 years old who are capable of working but just decided not to do anything. Or, oh, I had some kids. Now, they got to eat and I don't want to work. I got to stay home and take care of all the kids. Well, maybe you shouldn't have put yourself in that predicament. You made bad choices. So why should we pay for it? Right?
Right. And here's something too with the new rules and regs coming in for this year. And some of the people on food stamps, for example, and it's like if you're an able-bodied person, then if you want food stamps, you can keep getting them, but you got to volunteer a couple of hours, 20 hours a week. And
Yeah.
people are bitching and moaning. Here's the thing, though, because they don't want to work. But having been in a situation many moons ago, by volunteering at the senior center years ago, I got to meet other people that were coming in and out of the center, and I'm meeting people. Hi, Mr. No, how you doing? And
Yeah.
after the end of my 3-week stint, I had several leads on jobs.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was a weird way to network, to volunteer your time for the library or wherever, And so it's like, if you're looking for a longer term job, then use it as an opportunity. Plus, you keep getting food stamps. So, nothing for free, there again, so if you're able bodied, quit bitching, go out and volunteer somewhere and assume that you need to get a job.
That's right. That's exactly a good way to put it because,
No more free rides,
yeah, you have to show some kind of effort. Like you said, even if it's volunteering, hey, I can't get a job. Well, volunteer somewhere. Usually volunteer work, they don't ask for a lengthy resume and then, well, you don't qualify to volunteer. They're looking for anybody. So there you go. The
Yeah,
words to wise for the new year, right?
that's right. And and that's also a way, to be the wolf in that you are the teacher. So, you volunteer some time and then you fulfill your and fulfill your destiny as part of the wolf to teach something or impart wisdom or something.
Yeah.
And so that's an honorable thing. And in this day and time, it seems like folks are starting to pick up this honor thing. We were lied to so bad the last bunch of years that with the truth coming out, people are like, they're hungry for the truth all the time. They don't want to be lied to. They don't want, if you're a person who like, well, you talk about one thing and then you don't really mean it, or, it's sort of a lie, you're stretched the truth, now's the time not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
New year, new time, new stuff. So be honest with yourself, and be honest with all the people that you meet, because then honesty will keep exchanging itself.
You
And
know,
so, how do we get this to keep going in the future? We keep being honest with each other. Like all the people in it was so amazing to see all the people in that fireworks place. And me, I got a loud mouth, so everybody could hear me. And I'm like, let's go for the new year. And how many of you, So I was like a cheerleader for the new year. But
Right.
I had exact change for all of the fireworks I bought. It was $77. I had $1 left over. But anyway, but it's how you can affect other people. And I know I'm a crazy dude and blah blah blah. And but the thing is that it's how many people feel the same way we do. You know. So
Hmm.
people weren't being grumpy. People are looking forward to a good year. So let's keep
Yeah,
that vibe going. You know.
that's right. That's right. I agree. I agree. So let's keep that vibe going, and we'll wrap it up there. Remember, everybody, go out and keep the vibe going. You know, and be nice to other people. Simple things like talking to them, and hey, volunteer somewhere if you can, and if you can't, well, figure out something else to do. Sometimes people, they put up things in their yard that make people smile. You put up a snowman, or well, you don't have any snow there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And they
But
have a thing in Tallahassee, um, and I can't remember what it is right now. But there's a couple of cities, towns around, and there is um, it's like a locker,
mhm,
um, and there's shelves inside it, and it's on a street corner in Tallahassee, and
mhm.
people stop by and put food in it
Oh
if they
wow.
can, and then people who need food go by and get a can of something, and or a box of whatever. And so there's like double doors on it, and so you open it up and see what's on the shelves if
A
it
food.
hadn't been cleaned out. But that people have been donating to these things. And so what could you do in your neighborhood? You could set up one of those things. If you lived in the city, you could put one on the corner of on your lawn, and let people know, and that it's free. But it's free. Take a canned good or whatever. But we also need volunteers. So somebody's driving along, they got a couple extra cans, they stop by and stock up this little thing, and a little later on somebody's homeless and they don't have any food, and they can stop by and get a can of beans. So
Yeah,
that's a simple thing, but to me it's so grandiose.
yeah.
Here's this little kiosk thing on a street corner. People put food in, people take food out. There's nobody asks for anything. It's just
Kind of
there.
like those little things they have on the corners where they have a little door and a little thing, and they put books in there. It's like a little mini library, and you just walk up and grab a book or whatever. You put one in or whatever. You pick one out, put one in. It's like a little library on the corner, and everybody shares some books.
Yeah, and it's
And,
sort of like, in some cities they have the free bicycle thing that
oh,
they have, where you can go get a bike and ride it around town and then leave it in a back in one of the bike racks,
yeah,
somewhere in the city. So I mean, um, that's an easy way to be able to give back to a community
it is.
without it breaking your pocketbook. You
Yeah,
know, donate $2 a week and buy something and put it in the thing, or start one, or get
yeah,
some other people in the neighborhood. Hey, let's start one of these things. I
yeah,
think it's a great idea, but I live down here in the swamp, so but I'll support one,
yeah,
you know. So, but
yeah.
anyway,
I like that. That's a
and
good thing.
remember too that I continue to pray that each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. So keep it between the ditches, my friends. The future is only what we make it. So it's up to us to make a good future.
That is so true. And with that, everyone, remember, go out and do something nice and be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.